don't bring me happy. Thank you, happy.
He's Bryan Kreutz, I'm Lili Fox-Lim, and you are the Star Trek fan who definitely remembers Manu Intiraymi, who, by the way, is still acting and branching out into writing and producing as well. Star Trek Voyager was a first being on UPN, United Paramount Network, and Manu Intiraymi was a first playing a Borg team.
Yes, he played the recurring character Icheb. That is quite possibly one of the most unique and famous non-regulars in Legacy Star Trek. We have so much to talk about with Manu, and we're happy to get you Trekkies caught up for a conversation with him, because really there's no time for news.
No, there's no time for news, so let's bring out our guest and bring him on screen. Manu, welcome to A Captain's Log.
I'm Manu Intiraymi, and welcome to A Captain's Log.
Now, Manu, several years ago, you once stated that before you die, you would like to be able to say that you have made the film from first frame to last frame that you were meant to make, citing the work by Honey Glue by your good friend James Byrd as an example. Now, what progress have you made, if any, on this, and what in your mind, as I can only imagine at this point in your life, you have some type of idea of what the perfect project that you would like to accomplish would be, but can you give us some insight into that and what your grand opus is?
Well, I don't know. I started producing films when I was about, 32 or something like that. The first movie I made was a movie called Benjamin Troubles. Then I made a movie called Fifth Passenger, and slowly the budgets went up. I did a movie called Hell on the Border after that, about Bass Reeves, and I thought that was cool because it was about the first African-American sheriff in history, and I thought that story was really interesting. But I still haven't made the movie that I see and I go, yeah, that's a great film. I really hard on myself, but also I haven't made a great film yet, just to be truthful. Right now I'm working on a TV series that I'm really excited to do that's sort of like Galaxy Quest meets Shaun of the Dead, called Star Crew. But my magna opus, lately I've been thinking, if we can get Star Crew greenlit and off the ground, and I get to do that, that can be sort of my, like, so long and thanks for all the fish to sci-fi for the 20 years of good luck and fortune that Star Trek has given me. I get to sort of make fun of it, but make fun of it sort of like Galaxy Quest did. It's like you're in on the joke, right? You're not getting picked on. But lately, I've really wanted to tell my real life story, not to be like a complete narcissist.
I hear there's quite an interesting story about your casting for Icheb on Voyager that goes back to your first ever role on the show Senseless with the casting director Ron Surma. Can you tell us a little about the interaction with Mr. Surma and your agent, and how the casting process evolved to eventually win you the role in the 6th season episode Collective?
It was definitely fate, because it was a long, weird process. When I first got to LA, I got a manager represented me from a play that I was doing in San Luis Obispo. Told me if I moved to LA after high school, she'd get me an agent, she'd represent me. After like a year of failing and not getting anything, the first thing that I booked was this movie called Senseless with Marlon Wayans and David Spade. And the director was Penelope Spheris, and she was an old punk rock documentarian. So I was like this young punk rock kid. So I think she just liked me and gave me a chance. It gave me a break. And Ron Surma was casting with her, but I was horrible in Senseless. Like when I got to the set, I was horrible. I swear it took me 50 takes to get one line out, because I was trying to be like the character in Pulp Fiction that has to hit John Travolta with the needle to bring him back to life. I had just got to Hollywood, so I was starstruck and couldn't believe I was there, so very nervous. And I sucked. I almost quit. Like, I remember at the end of the day, like, just going back to my Nissan hatchback and like crying. But 2 years later, the role of Icheb came out, and they were casting they were casting the role for both those characters in Collective, the bad Borg boy #1, and they actually called him first and second. And I auditioned for first, the bad guy that died in that episode. So basically, but before I even got the audition, my agent happened to be sitting next to Ron Surma in a pedicure store, in a salon, and they were both getting a pedicure. Both very flamboyant gay men. I love them both. I love Ron Surma, and my first agent from Acme. Oh my God, 45. I can't remember his name. I hope he never sees this. But he was amazing. He worked so hard for me. I wish I could give him some props right now. But it was the Acme Talent and Literary. I had a few agents there.
Yeah.
But he was sitting next to Ron, and Ron was saying, "Hey, do you have any younger guys that can do like a robot Borg and then transform into this other character," and kind of breaking down the role for him. And my agent was absolutely, yes, I've got this young actor named Manu Intiraymi. He's amazing. You should see him. And Ron remembered and had heard back how terrible I was on Senseless. And so Ron was like, no way, man. That guy's a train wreck. Don't let him. No, that's not happening. And my agent really, really fought for me, because I had gotten a couple of roles since then on like Jag and Pacific Blue and a couple other TV shows of that time.
Yeah.
And I had sort of got my feet underneath me at that point. And my agent was like, he's grown. He knows what he's doing now. You have to see him. He's not going to do what he did 2 years ago. And he got so angry fighting for me that the lady that was doing his feet made him bleed. That's the story my agent tells me, is that his foot started bleeding. And he said to Ron Surma, see, I am literally bleeding blood for my client right now. You must see him again. And Ron was like, all right, I'll see him. And that led to the audition, which led to another audition in front of the director, then another audition in front of network and the showrunner and Rick Berman, and etc. And all the suits at Paramount. You have to be approved by everybody. I didn't really know that the role was going to last for 2 years. I thought it was a one-off, one episode. So
Yeah.
they didn't let me know. In fact, the whole 2 years that I worked on Star Trek, they sort of kept me in the dark on whether I was coming back. And
Really?
every other episode, Icheb would, be back doing something. But they never said, you're going to be coming home with the ship and making it all the way back home. Probably because they didn't want to give me, like, if they knew that, I would negotiate for more money. So they're smart that way. But I had a ball, I had a ball playing that character, and I threw my heart and soul at it because I was so excited to be on Star Trek. I was a fan of especially the original Star Trek.
Yeah, it's quite a testament to your resilience to keep playing the role for, about 11, maybe 12 episodes and 2 years on Voyager.
It was a couple years of work, so it was pretty amazing, and the cast was amazing. I love all those guys. I get along with all those guys, so it was quite an experience. And as a young actor, I think I was 21 when I got the part. A lot of people think I was a lot younger because they wrote him to seem younger.
Yeah.
But even at 21, to get to work with Bob Picardo and Kate Mulgrew and Jerry Ryan and Ethan Phillips and all these guys that were at the top of their game, I could just, like a sponge, I tried to suck up their camera technique and steal little things that they did. For instance, Kate Mulgrew would start every take down here, and then when they called action, she'd come up to camera like that. I went, oh, okay, that's nice. I'll steal that.
A captain's log returns in a moment.
Lili and I are honored to continue our interview with a wonderful guest in Manu Intiraymi, who we've both wanted to have a chance at talking shop as an actor and producer.
And of course, talking some Trek as a rare opportunity to take time discussing Icheb on Star Trek Voyager, who is literally one of the most integral recurring characters in Star Trek's long history, appearing 11 times.
Yes.
BK, you have the next question for Manu, I believe.
Yes, Lili. Manu, you were 21 years old when you landed the role of Icheb on Star Trek Voyager. Now, in a sense of getting to know other actors on the Paramount sound stages, did you take the lead as the eldest of all the guest actors on set, conversing with the younger performers like Marlee McLean, Scarlett Palmer's, Kurt and Cody Wetherill, or were you primarily speaking and joking around with Robert Picardo, Jerry Ryan, Kate Mulgrew, and the main cast more often between takes? Like, tell us about this.
Yeah, I probably stayed away from the kids as much as possible. I was 21 and sort of a dick. I mean, everybody's kind of a dick when they're 21, right?
Right.
So yeah, I didn't want to hang around with the kids. Although Marlee McLean was an amazing little actress. She was just, I remember just being impressed by how the performance that she gave for the few episodes that she got to do. I was like, strong little actress. So me and her talked more than the twins did, but I got to know them all. But yeah, I probably spent more time with Jerry and Kate and Picardo, because most of my scenes were with those three. Ethan. I got to do some scenes with Russ and Beltran and the rest, but mostly it was those three people that I hung out with most, and Jerry the most, because most of my scenes Jerry was involved in some way.
When you were in the casting process, were you ever aware of the casting director for the other children that you would be starring with? It seems that other than yourself, actress Marlee McLean had a longer tenure on the show. Was this by design, or were there other factors that led to the other twin boys, Kurt and Cody Wetherill, not being able to continue their roles? Now, based on what was seen on screen, it seems as if the boys were not given an ample opportunity to showcase their talent. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, the kids, it was a bummer, because they, at the beginning of season 7, right when we were starting to build a story for those guys, I think the writers not got scared, but didn't have room for 4 more characters on the show. And so I think the first episode of season 7 or the second, they sent all the kids home, Marlee and the 2 twins. And it was a sad thing, because I'd gotten to know their parents and I'd gotten to know them, and we had gotten to do a few episodes together. So we sort of figured, wow. I mean, I guessed that they were going to keep me on by that point.
Oh yeah.
But I wasn't sure. And then when they sent them home, it was sort of like, ooh, get on your game. They could send you home at any time. It was that episode's Child's Play, where they sent the kids home, and then Icheb had this whole adventure with his rotten parents. And I remember that they shot the kids going home first, and that sort of put me on point. I went home that night and I was like, I get it. This is your test episode. Like, this is an Icheb episode. They're testing whether you can hang with this cast. You go to work. And I remember after filming Child's Play, Brandon Braga, who I'd never seen before except at the audition, came down to the set and walked up to me and said, "Hey, Manu." And I said, "Hey, Brandon," because of course I knew who he was, right?
Yeah.
And he just shook my hand. He said, I want to let you know you're doing a really good job on the show. I'm proud of you." And I was like, something like that. I can't, I don't remember exactly what the quote was, but something to the effect of, "You're doing really well." And I was like, ka-ching. Yeah, I think I'm going to stay on the show. I did audition for the character that dies, the big bad guy in Collective.
Yeah.
And when they called me, they said, "We're sorry, you didn't get the part."
Oh wow.
And I'm like, "Well, why are you calling me?" Because they usually don't call you if you don't get the part. It's just, don't get a phone call.
Yeah.
But they said, "But we would like to offer you the other character second." And I was like, "Yes, yeah, absolutely, of course, I'll take it." And then it ended up that second turned into Icheb, and so they really got me on as far as like not letting me know that I was going to be a part of the show. But I don't think they even knew whether Icheb was going to be hanging out or not at that time. So,
in our humble opinion, 2 of your greatest episodes from Voyager were Child's Play and Imperfection. Your performances were so real and emotive. Can you describe how you prepared for these 2 episodes specifically, as they're very heavily Icheb-centric?
Imperfection I remember even more because I read it. You get the script a week before you go to work, and it was such a powerful read about, giving up basically it was a metaphor for giving up your organ or your, kidney to a friend or something like that. And I knew it was powerful. I was like, this is really good. I was 21. I was still basically a kid, a man, but you're 21. When you're 45, you look back at it and you're like, as a kid. But I remember reading it, and I literally called my mother, and I was like, Mom, I've been in Hollywood for like 3 years, 4 years, and I've been working so hard to do something that matters, and I think I'm going to get to do something that affects people, that really touches people's hearts. I was stoked to do that episode. Yeah, it was like, you don't get it. I've done a lot of bad work in my career, a lot of dorky stuff that really was just sort of like cookie cutter entertainment. And to get to do something like Imperfection, which was a brilliant episode, and about something that was really important. A year later, I got the whole loop gave back to me because I did my very first Star Trek convention a year later, and it was in Germany. It was a convention called FedCon, and there were like 5,000 to 7,000 people in this big auditorium. And I didn't know that I was going to have to speak at these things. I thought I was just going to go and sign autographs. But they go, Manu, it's your time to get on stage. And I'm like, huh? And they're like, yeah, you have a 2-hour, session. Here's the mic. They play the music, and I go out there, and I'm 21. I had no idea I had to prepare anything, But I did well. I just started riffing, and I'd done a little bit of stand-up comedy, so I just started having fun. But then when I started taking questions, this man stood up next to his friend, and his friend was, what's the word where you translate? He was translating for him. And the guy was really full of emotion and tears as well. And he was like, I wanted to thank you because I had my kidney removed, and this is the man next to me, was the person, I don't remember if it was his family member or not, but he was like, this is the man that let me live. And I watched that episode during my kidney operation, and he was tearing up when he was asking me this. And he just said, I want to say thank you. He didn't really have an answer for me. But I immediately started bawling on stage. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean, thank you? Like, thank you. That makes me know that my art reached people like I thought it was going to reach. And I'm like really crying to the point where like snot's coming out of my nose. Make people feel and care and have hope, and like that's what I thought the whole thing was, and it is, the Star Trek message is hope. So it was really powerful, and it was cool to get all the way in Germany too. Like after telling my mom, I think I'm gonna affect people worldwide. Yeah, Imperfection's a great episode. Great ending. I know we shot that ending so many times because I just felt like I wasn't getting it right when Seven's tear drops, and but yeah, that's a good one. It's probably my favorite episode. I mean, sitting in my little dingy apartment, I just went, oh my God, I'm finally going to get to do real work. Child's Play was real work, but Child's Play was more like cool and dark and, oh my God, that's gnarly. This was more like, heartfelt and poignant.
Also, as a side note, there is one behind-the-scenes tidbit that we have always been wanting to know about and trying to figure out ourselves, right? We'd like to know if you have it in your memory banks to be able to pull back the magic curtain and tell us about how the extracting and inserting of a 3-inch long cortical node from your forehead in the episode Imperfection was executed. Now, it sure doesn't look like it could have been done with a green screen or computer generated imagery of VFX in any way, but it is definitely a physical object being pulled out of your real head. We're going to show a clip of it.
The reason I have a recollection of that is totally pervy, but I'm 45 and I don't care. Underneath those blankets, they have you in these little like onesies to make it look like you're actually in surgery, right?
Yeah.
And so Seven's in her little onesie and I'm in my little onesie, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, you know, totally perved out. But because Seven's, you know, Jerry's beautiful.
Totally.
But so of course I remember shooting it. But it's also one of those really difficult things to do because you're laying there and there's dialogue going on and the doctor's, you know, doing his, and you're supposed to just be out. And it's crazy, but one of the hardest things to do on camera is be asleep or be still.
Oh, really?
Especially when they do that sound speed action, you know, your lip tends to twitch or your eye tends to, you're just trying to breathe and trying to be asleep. But I do remember that was absolutely, you know, it was a long time ago, but they didn't pull anything out of our real head. It was absolutely computer generated. And the doctor would take his little tweezers and just go close to my forehead and pretend that he had that thing, and they computer generated the thing and the little sphere that opened and popped out in my head. I think what they probably did is, and don't quote me on this because I'm just guessing, but I think they had that tech back in 2001. They probably shot Picardo on a green screen, you know, doing the same movement, and then they shot him and they just, you know, popped in. You know, they didn't have to paint my head green or anything. They just did that. You know, you don't, as long as you have tracking marks, you don't sometimes need to do a full green screen effect. So the truth of the matter is I'm not entirely certain how they accomplished that shot. All that I know is that little opening effect and the thing popping out was definitely CGI. And I remember Picardo taking the tweezers and pretending that he had something in there, but it was computer generated and tracked.
A captain's log returns in a moment.
Seriously, it's Lucas, right? Man, you gotta join the league. It's so fun.
I would, but I don't really.
I blinked. Mess everything up. You can't hang it up if I blinked.
I promise.
I got one word for y'all. Rematch.
Oh, are you ready to get beat again, Caleb?
All right.
Yes?
One more. Yes. Then I gotta. I lost track of time. I can't.
We are Lili Fox-Lim and Bryan Kreutz, and we welcome you back to A Captain's Log. We just showed you Trekkies, a short film Manu Intiraymi made with Roddenberry Entertainment called Instant. Star Trek alumni Phil Morris was also a part of this film.
Yes.
Manu, please talk about this film a bit and how you became involved with Rod Roddenberry's production company to make this film.
Instant, I'm really, really proud of. It's actually, I've done like 70 something odd projects at this point, and it's just a little short film from Roddenberry Entertainment before Rod became the new Star Trek and you know, one of the showrunners over there, not the showrunner, but one of the main producers over there. A couple years before that whole thing happened for him. And it was just a little short film that my friend Farah was casting, but it's such a good story. And I wish more, you know, it's got 13,000 views on YouTube. I wish that more people have seen it than that. I mean, it went around the festival circuit, so I think, you know, a lot of people got to see it, but it should have so many more views because it's a really, really good short film, and also just a great story. Really neat ending. It hits you in your heart. I was just proud to be a part of it. It was cool to get to know Rod better than I knew him. I'd met him at conventions before, but I didn't know him. No, and spent some good time in those years with Rod and Trevor, who was his producing partner, who is now on all the new Treks over at CBS Paramount. Great character, great story, great short. Just go on YouTube and look up Instant Roddenberry Entertainment, and it'll pop right up. It's totally worth your 21 minutes, and it's free. So you should absolutely see it.
In our second season premiere here on A Captain's Log, we interviewed director and producer Scotty Baker, who brought you in for the science fiction film Fifth Passenger. Can you please talk about your experience? Ryan T. Huss bringing in Doug Jones, and I understand you brought in Star Trek alumni Tim Russ, Armin Shimmerman, and Marina Sirtis on as the cast on board of this sci-fi adventure.
Scotty Baker happened to be the Steadicam operator that we hired to shoot the teaser to try to raise money for Dark River. And Scott, while we were working together on that I think we might have only shot for a day, maybe two. I think it was just a day. But Scott was Steadicam operating. At the end of the day, he said, "Hey, Manu, I have this script, this sci-fi script that I wrote that's real simple and self-contained, called Fifth Passenger. Do you want to read it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, send it to me." And I thought the script was great. I thought the hook and the twist was really good, and the simplicity of this contained thriller. And I was like, let's make this, like, let's figure it out. I should probably not share the behind the scenes drama. But yeah, there was a lot of behind the scenes drama on that movie. Only because I had this dream that I thought the movie could be like a $30 million picture. And Scott had written it, but I didn't know that he had written it with another lady named Morgan Lariah, and Morgan was going to play the lead character. In my mind the whole time, I didn't talk to Scott about it, but in my mind the whole time I was like, okay, Scott wrote this. I didn't know that Morgan wrote it too. So I wanted to offer it to a friend of mine at the time, Jessie Beal, and see if she would be interested.
Bryan and I will continue our interview with Manu Intiraymi in part 2 next week here on A Captain's Log.
Yes, can't wait for that second half of our Manu interview. Most of us who act or create dialogue in writing think of ourselves as artists. To be there in person with an artist is something Lili and I are thrilled to be a part of, coming up on September 21st. Remember the date.
Bryan and I will join Manu Intiraymi in the beautiful suburb city of Denver, Colorado for Aurora MiniCon on the Star Trek panel with Manu Intiraymi.
Yes.
Be happy. Ooh. Thank you.